Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're descending into the absolute darkest depths of a world that's trapped in a completely unnatural cycle. We're going to explore the lore, the mechanics, and the wildly fascinating origins of arguably one of the most imposing figures in all of dark fantasy. Yep, we're talking about Gravelord Nito, the first of the dead. We'll uncover secret political alliances, tragically stolen power, and even the real-world masterpieces that inspired these literal nightmares. Let's get into it.
Now, to truly grasp Nito's domain, we've got to understand the philosophy of death in this universe. As the Finito, who are actually these creatures woven by Nito himself to watch over the dead, tell us, death is equitable, accepting. We will all one day be welcomed by her embrace. It's haunting, right? In a world where light only seems to agitate things, Nito's realm acts as this light-devouring sanctuary of eternal rest.
Section 1. First of the Dead, Gravelord Nito.
So, down in the pitch-black abyss of the Tomb of the Giants slumbers the god of death himself. Tracing Nito's epic and honestly pretty tragic history, we start at the dawn of fire. He was one of the primordial beings who claimed a lord soul, giving him just immense power. Then, during the Great War against the Eternal Dragons, while Gwyn was hurling lightning and the witches were weaving fire, Nito unleashed this lethal miasma of death. It literally rotted the archtrees and infected the dragons. But after they won, he didn't go looking for a golden city like Gwyn did. He just retreated deep underground to slumber. But, as the era of undeath rolled in, his total isolation left him incredibly vulnerable, which eventually led to his sacred power being stolen right out from under him.
And the thing is, Nito wasn't just a god who killed. He literally administered death. He gave up a massive chunk of his own lord soul just to weave death across the entire world. And in doing so, he transformed into this towering hunchback monstrosity. I mean, he's a living mass of conjoined skeletons, actually using the bones of the fallen as armor and wielding a giant blade crafted from those very same bones. He is, quite literally, the walking embodiment of the end of life.
Moving on to Section 2, Servants of the Grave, the Catacombs.
The catacombs leading down to Nito's resting place are heavily fortified by a very specific and terrifying type of servant. We're talking about the necromancers, also known as undead mages. These incredibly elusive casters basically control every single skeleton in the catacombs. As long as the necromancer is alive, their skeletal minions will just keep putting themselves back together over and over again. Plus, they rarely drop a highly coveted item called the Skull Lantern. It's a tool that generates magical light specifically designed to help you navigate Nito's pitch-black, light-devouring domain.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is how the lore of these necromancers dictates your actual survival strategy. Because they constantly revive their minions, you basically have two choices. Choice 1, you equip a weapon with a holy or divine modifier. This literally severs the necromantic link and keeps the skeletons down for good. Choice 2, you grab a high fire-resistant shield, like the Black Knight or Dragon Crest shield, to block the necromancer's fireballs, and you just sprint past the skeletons to hunt the mage down directly. Because once that necromancer is dead, they do not respawn, and all their skeletons permanently lose that annoying immortality.
All right, Section 3, the Rite of Kindling, a lore puzzle.
And this brings us to a massive, mind-bending piece of the lore puzzle. I want you to really think about this for a second. Why on earth did the Lord of Death possess the Rite of Kindling? This is a sacred ritual of fire used by the Way of White clerics to boost the healing power of bonfires for the undead. On the surface, it seems completely contradictory for Nito, a being made of corpses, to hold on to this.
Well, the crucial point here is understanding what the Rite of Kindling actually does. To kindle a bonfire, you have to burn humanity. And humanity is quite literally a physical fragment of the dark soul. Since the soul is the source of life, its destruction completely falls under the purview of the god of death. So Nito actually created a way to destroy the dark within man by casting it directly into the flame. Pretty brilliant, right?
There are tons of environmental clues strongly suggesting that Nito and Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, were actually political allies. First off, we find the giant skeletons of the deceased gods of Orlando resting completely peacefully down in Nito's tomb right alongside their clerics. This heavily implies they had shared burial grounds. Secondly, Gwyn gave Nito total domain independence to just regulate death. In return, when the undead curse started threatening Gwyn's Age of Fire, Nito helped regulate it by developing the Rite of Kindling to feed humanity to the flames. It was a perfect, mutually beneficial pact.
But as with pretty much everything in this universe, the alliance collapsed. Why?
Well, first, a faction of occult followers tried invading the catacombs to steal Nito's death magic so they could hunt the gods. They failed, sure, but it brought a ton of unwanted chaos right to Nito's doorstep. Second, Nito grew deeply, deeply isolated. I mean, corpses were literally left piling up neglected at the entrance to his catacombs. But the final straw? Gwyn left to sacrifice himself and link the first flame. By offering himself to the fire instead of being buried in the Tomb of the Giants, Gwyn totally nullified their ancient agreement. After that, Nito just completely severed his ties with the world above.
Next up, Section 4. Pinwheel's Obsession, Stolen Power.
So Nito's absolute isolation created a massive power vacuum, and someone definitely took advantage of it. This brilliantly illustrates just the sheer absurdity of the situation. Think about it. On one side, you have Gravelord Nito, this immense primordial god of death with the power to literally fell dragons. On the other side, you have Pinwheel, a frail, desperate necromancer who is essentially made of 3 human bodies forcefully merged together. Yet somehow this pathetic, tragic figure managed to pull off the ultimate heist.
As the item descriptions tell us, Pinwheel isn't just a run-of-the-mill thief. He is the necromancer who stole the power of the Gravelord and reigns over the catacombs. Pinwheel didn't just sneak in and grab the right of kindling, he actually usurped control of the upper catacombs entirely, leaving Nito completely locked away in the deeper darkness of the tomb.
But why? Why did Pinwheel even want the right of kindling in the first place? If we look closely at his boss room, it's basically a laboratory filled with books and a human skeleton just sitting on a dissection table. Pinwheel was obsessively studying undead bonfires and humanity. He was dissecting a human skeleton because the shackles of the undead curse are actually tied to physical human vertebrae. It's widely theorized by fans that his desperate research into necromancy and the rite of kindling was all a tragic, totally misguided attempt to properly revive his dead family, the mother, the father, and the child.
All right, our last chapter, Section 5, Berserk Inspiration, Real-World Influences.
Taking a step back from the in-universe lore for a minute, you really have to wonder where these incredibly dark, tortured designs actually came from. Well, the legendary video game director Hidetaka Miyazaki has openly drawn heavy inspiration from the late Kentaro Miura's absolute masterpiece of a manga, Berserk. The incredibly bleak mood, the overarching themes of struggling against fate, and of course the horrifying creature designs of Nito's domain and beyond, they all owe a massive debt to Miura's genius. For a really direct comparison, just look at the massive great sword weapon you can find. It is an undeniable homage to the ridiculously oversized blade wielded by Berserk's protagonist Guts. But honestly, even more famously, the dreaded bone wheel skeletons. You know, the ones that relentlessly roll at you in the catacombs and ruin your day. Those are lifted straight out of Berserk's pages, where undead corpses remain permanently lashed to the horrific breaking wheels that cause their deaths.
And the parallels totally don't stop there. The Taurus demon is a dead ringer for Berserk's terrifying apostle Nosferatu-Zod. The beloved blacksmith Andre is visually and thematically mirrored right after Godot, the man who crafted Guts' sword. Even the man-serpent enemies you fight later on closely parallel Berserk's villainous Snake Lord. It's just a brilliant, continuous homage that fans of both mediums instantly recognize and love.
As we wrap up this journey into the dark, I really want to leave you with one final thought. We so often view the bosses we fight as the clear-cut villains of the story. But in a universe plagued by unnatural undeath, where humans are cursed to never truly pass on, was Gravelord Nito actually evil? Or was the first of the dead simply a neutral, incredibly necessary force of nature, just patiently waiting in the dark to restore the balance that the rest of the world fought so hard to break? Definitely think on that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the lore you uncover.